How's it going, everybody? ZoinkMeister Patrick here, and today I'll be doing a platinum review for Ghostrunner. I played it specifically on Steam, so it's not really a platinum review so much as it is a blue ribbon review, but still, the point of this review is that I managed to get all of the achievements in the game, and then I even managed to complete it. The DLC for this game will be coming up very shortly on January 27th, 2022. And as of this recording, it has not dropped, and so I can't get any of those achievements, and I don't know if I'll get them anyway, so there you have it. I don't want to tease you guys too much about how I felt about the game, so I'm just going to be upfront and say that while I did enjoy it, I found a lot of different aspects caused me to be more annoyed with the game than anything else. But first, let's get into the plot. Surprisingly, before the game even starts, right when you boot it up, after it shows all of the logos for the companies that made this game, you'll go straight into this intro cutscene, which gives you background information on how you got to where you are at the start of the game. Nobody talks, and it's kind of vague what exactly happens, but I can tell you that that intro cutscene takes place 20 years before the very start, when you find out that this interesting-looking cybernetic creature is on a rampage, killing everything he sees, and doing it really quickly and really stylishly. First thing that happens after you wake up is a whisper starts talking in your ear, and you quickly find out that this is the architect, and that you are a Ghostrunner, GR74. The entire game takes place inside a large structure known as Dharma Tower. Back in the distant past before this game, there was something known only as the Burst, which caused all of the outside world to be uninhabitable. All the humans on the planet that moved to Dharma Tower managed to survive, but it is assumed that none live outside of the tower. The creator of the tower and its political leader, Adam, along with his wife, Mara, have controlled the tower since its inception. Our story kicks off when Adam, realizing that he's getting old and won't be able to live forever, decides to create an AI version of himself known as the Architect. After doing so and showing it to his wife decides that she has her own plans and ends up killing Adam and becoming the Keymaster. The Keymaster is going to be our main antagonist of the game. She's the one that killed all the other Ghostrunners, of which there was originally 100, you being number 74, and without them around to interfere with her plan, she goes forward with what she thinks is the best thing for the humans inside of Dharma Tower. The Ghostrunners, for context, were a sort of super soldier peacekeeping group that acted as guardians for the residents in the tower and carried out Adam's will. In the 20 years since they have been gone, gang violence has become rampant. One such gang is known as the Climbers. This group managed to rescue GR74 after he fell from the top of the tower. They fixed him up and rechristened him Jack. Your goal as Jack is to make your way back up the tower in the hopes of finding a way to kill the Keymaster and get revenge for all your allies. This game's narrative is told primarily through two different mediums. The first one is through calls that you get from various characters in the game, and these kind of give you direct information about what's going on currently. These calls are a bit annoying because you're usually trying to do something and you're busy, and often you're trying to finish levels quickly, and so sometimes you'll finish a level too quickly and you'll cut off someone's conversation and then you'll miss story beats, and then you have to replay the entire level because, you know, you don't want to miss what's going on. The other main way that you get the story is through the collectibles in the game. Whenever you pick up a collectible, you can read this little tiny couple sentence excerpt about how this collectible relates to what's going on in the tower. These are more little side notes, and in addition to the audio logs that you get from Adam before his death, give you a more complete picture of what things looked like leading up to the beginning of the game. With the basics out of the way, let's move on to presentation. First things first, this game looks beautiful. It's very dark and very cyberpunk-esque, but it looks great all the time. Just watching someone who is a master at the craft do a decent run even in a level can show just the zip-zap slice slitting around that this game really finds itself to be its best at. This even is one of the games that supports ray tracing. So theoretically, you could play this in 4K, 60 frames per second with ray tracing on. I say theoretically because this game takes a lot of power, but you could theoretically do it. That being said, I personally valued frame rate much more over any beautiful look, so I played the game in 1080 at 144 Hz, which is the most that my monitor can display, and with the ray tracing off. This is mostly because this game is very difficult, but we'll get into that later. Another part of the presentation that I didn't like quite as much is the fact that the enemies are really hard to see. They blend in with their environment quite a lot, and at a distance, it's pretty hard to tell what exactly you're up against, which is important because different enemies have to be approached in different ways. But again, let's get into that a little bit more here in the next section, gameplay. I'm just gonna say it outright, the gameplay sucks butt. The control schemes are all garbage. I had to make my own custom control scheme, and I ended up playing this on a controller because I could not figure out a control scheme that I liked on the mouse and keyboard. That's definitely a me problem. I think people more comfortable with the mouse and keyboard will find this game easier to play that way. But for me, this game is so intense that I just had to use a controller because there were just more buttons and more ergonomic places, and I just had to do that. So real quick, I'm going to throw up what exactly my control scheme was, because if you can't change it to something that isn't frustratingly out of the way, then you might have a rough time. Assuming you can get past that little hiccup, the next thing you notice is that moving around in this game is really interesting. The parkour can be fun, but a lot of times janky, and I didn't always have it working out for me exactly like I wanted it to. And this is made more difficult by the fact that this game uses the style of one hit, one kill on everything, including yourself. This means that if the game isn't controlling the way that you need it to and you're not doing what you want to be doing, then you end up dying real quick. This isn't helped by the fact that the further on you get in the game and the more enemy types that are introduced, the more annoying that they get. Eventually you start facing stuff that just does some nonsense and you're like, well, While the game introducing all these different kinds of enemies is nice for variety, something that's annoying is that since those enemies are very difficult to see against the background, you oftentimes don't know what you need to do until you can get really close, and it's one hit to die, so that might be too late. Part of it is just learning the enemy patterns, but the game does give you one upgrade that highlights the enemies in red so you can more easily identify what they are from a distance, or even just see them at all. The downside is that this is an upgrade, so it takes up upgrade space, which means that you can't do fun things. Instead, you have to do boring things, like being able to play the game. Again, this is something that on subsequent run-throughs might not be as much of a problem once you've memorized the pattern and everything, but for me, I always felt like I'd rather have that there, just because my eyeballs didn't like looking at the dark everything being the same looking. One bit of good news is that if you go into the settings, you can find the very important to enable instant restart, which allows you to get back into the action very quickly. A feature of this game that they implement to make things easier on you is the upgrade system. Of course, that had to be difficult too, didn't it? You see, the way upgrades work is that they give you these weird Tetronimos, except they aren't Tetris shapes, they're random shapes of squares that are all connected together in different sizes, different shapes, and you have to put them into this grid with random blocks in it and figure out how to all squeeze them on there to get what you want. This means that you usually don't use too many upgrades at a time. There's a bunch available to you, but you can only actually use like 2 or 3. 2 or 3 is an exaggeration, you can probably use up to 6. But because of their dumb configuration and having to figure out how to squeeze them in, they're really, really hard to swap out. And you can't just like use something and say, ooh, I want to switch to something else and just do it. You're sitting there on the upgrade screen thinking, okay, well, what puzzle am I gonna do here to get myself to just do what I want? One thing that actually is nice that they give you with the upgrade system is that any slots that you end up not filling through this convoluted method will go towards your passive regeneration of your focus, which allows you to use your special abilities. Otherwise, if you manage to fill up everything in the upgrade screen, you only really end up with being able to charge the focus through killing enemies. And I can assure you, those special abilities do make the difference. So being able to passively charge that while you're in the parkour section so you have it available when you're in the combat sections really can be useful. Another issue I have is that some upgrades that you feel like should probably be there aren't, such as there's no second air dash in the game. I get that a second air dash would probably make this game probably, broken to some degree, but I would have really liked it personally. Another thing that would have been cool, and isn't in the game, but again, I would have been really excited for, is if there'd been like a weird super mode where you could just use all the upgrades at the same time, even if it didn't count for time or anything like that. Just having that like little cheat code mode once you beat the game would have gone a long way for me. Speaking of finishing the game, let's move on to this last section, completion. Honestly, completing this game, not that bad. Finishing it only took me around 8 hours. It was really short, but I personally am finding that the more games I play, the more I appreciate when they're short, especially when I get more annoyed with them as I get closer to the end, because they get so freaking difficult. And so I feel like it didn't overstay its welcome. It ramped up the challenge, and it introduced new things, and it tried those things out, and I think it successfully showed off what those things can do, and didn't just give you a bunch of nonsense. Next, the platinum only probably takes you around 10 hours, an additional 2 hours on top of the finishing time. If you look through some of the achievements in this game, they might look difficult, but honestly, once you play the level Things You Won't Believe, which is towards the end of the game, those really difficult looking achievements actually are pretty easy to get. Finally, the completion. I originally didn't think I was going to complete this game just because I was so frustrated with it by the time I got to the end, but because I'm doing this review, I decided I wanted to go the extra mile and complete it, which only took me an additional 2 hours, so we're sitting at 12 hours in total. The only thing really needed to complete it is that there are 2 other modes that were introduced into the game. These 2 extra modes don't have any achievements associated with them, but they're called Kill Run and Wave Mode. I'm going to start with Wave Mode because I think it's more simple. You just play 20 rounds against a random group of enemies, and you get to keep retrying the same wave over and over until you succeed, so it's not like you have to do it all in one perfect run. Really, the easiest way to do it is to unlock one of your upgrade skills called Tempest, and then get something called the Multi-Kill Refill, which allows you to instantly do another Tempest as long as you kill 2 people with your first one. In a small arena zone like this, that sort of power becomes really strong. The other mode, called Kill Run, is just 5 extra levels, which you have to do very fast. For this, I recommend just looking up a route, unless you want to figure it out for yourself. Obviously, you can absolutely go ahead, but for me, it was just a matter of, at this point, I just wanted to see if I could get it done. And so I looked up a route and I did it, and it took me another, hour and a half to try to get that figured out, but eventually I did it, and it was what it was. And with that, I have everything in the game. There, again, will be a DLC coming out, which has a bunch of achievements associated with it, as well as different DLCs, which give you different cosmetics within the game. But none of these I was too interested in, and so I don't have them here for this completion. So with all of my major thoughts out of the way, my final score is a B-. So if you're wondering why such a high score based on all I said, it really looks good and was amazing, and every time I played it, my eyes would engage me into the game and tell me, yes, 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 you're having such a good time. If you're wondering why there's such a low score for this game, it's because my brain and my fingers simultaneously were telling me, wow, this game sucks, you are not having a fun time. One thing I forgot to mention earlier on during the gameplay, just because I felt like it's a little specific, is the fact that this game has 3 boss fights, and all of them are atrocious. The first boss fight is a total parkour challenge. It's crazy and all over the place, and I thought it was what I wanted out of the game, but then I did it, and I was like, nope, that's too much. The second boss fight is like a weird glorified QuickTime event. It's not presented as a QuickTime event, but it's basically hit the attack button at the right time when the thing flashes. The final boss fight was just confusing. I'm not going to spoil anything about it, but it was like nonsense, and it took me forever just to figure out how to do damage. And by the time I actually beat that boss fight, I was just bored. Oh, all 3 boss fights. By the time I actually beat them, I didn't feel like I was finally getting better. I feel like I was just finally getting bored. Because all of them are just doing something in like a perfect sequence, basically, and it's very slow, and you can see everything coming. It's just not messing up for like a longer period of time. So yeah, that's how I felt. Hope I didn't offend anybody, hope I didn't hurt anybody's feelings. That wasn't the point of this. I just have been playing this game for the last several days all day long because I've been sick and I haven't been able to do anything else, and this game has been my little solace, and I could have asked for a better companion because simultaneously I was playing Attack on Titan 2 because the Attack on Titan show just came out recently, and that also isn't the greatest game of all time, but sometimes I wanted to play that instead of this one because this game was a lot. This game was a lot. Hope you guys enjoyed this either way. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Please feel free to check out something else here on the channel. We have other Platinum reviews, or we have full Let's Play series. That's the majority of what we do here on this channel. And I can assure you it's just fun and funny, and we have a good time. Please feel free to leave a comment. I check down there. I try to respond to stuff. I love engaging with people. I love hearing what people think. I am open to other opinions. Love hearing that stuff. So please engage with me. I'll be there, I'll be excited for it, and I hope to see you guys in another video. Zoink out.